Okay, good morning. Thanks for coming today. Today we're going to talk about Zipforms. They changed their name to Transactions, but it's also Zipforms. So it's Zipforms Transactions, I guess. Um, we talked about marketing to generate leads. We talked about now that you generate leads, working with the buyer, and finding out what it is they're looking for, showing them their properties. And last week's class was the actual purchase contract with Richard. Well, he talked about the purchase contract, but we're going to talk about how to access that purchase contract and any other forms through Zipforms and how to fill them out and how to send them out for digital signatures. So the first thing that you want to do is go to car.org. So car.org. And if you have not signed up or registered yet, you have to register first. So you will have to go up to where it says, here it says my name, right? It says hi Carlos, but it would say sign in or log in or something. And when you click on that, it'll ask for username and password. And underneath that, there'll be a link that says register here. So you would have to register for the first time. It's going to ask you for your NRDS number and your DRE number. But if you don't have that, you can just click on I don't have it and it'll walk you through how to get that. So once you register, you've created a username and password, then you can come back to the homepage here on car.org. And to access Zipforms, the fastest and easiest way would just be to. Morty, how are you? Good. Just 1 minute. Hold on 1 minute. Let me grab a couple of chairs. Give me a second, everybody on Zoom. Just in case we have someone else show up. For those of you that just showed up, I'm feeling a little bit under the weather, a little sick, so if you don't want to be in here, you guys can log in on your laptop outside, but everyone else seems to be fine with it. But I just wanted to put that out there. Okay, so you're going to go to car.org, and for those of you that showed up late, if you have not registered for this website, you have to go click on at the top right where it says my name, hi Carlos. It'll say sign in or log in or something. And you click on that link and it's going to ask for a username and password. But underneath that, you're going to see a link that says register here. So you're going to click on that, register. And then once you register, create your username and password, then you're going to come back to car.org, which is this homepage here. And the fastest way to access Zipforms is this big circle on the left-hand side that says access realtor secure transaction. That circle is Zipforms. So right here on the left hand, so you guys see that? Yes, everyone? Yes. Okay. So we're going to click on that. And then you're going to click on access now. And then if you're not already logged in, it's going to ask you to log in here. So you can either, I like just going straight to this website, clicking on the button, and then clicking on transactions here on the left, access now. And then it asks me for my username and password. So I go through all this first and then I enter my password. So now that you're logged in, this is what it's going to look like. You're not going to have these blocks here. It's just here. Actually, let me delete these. Just so you guys can. Oh, I can't delete this one. I can't delete this one because it's a lease that I just worked on. So I'll leave that there. So it's going to be blank. You're not going to see anything on the bottom. So first thing you want to do is on the top right hand corner where you see my picture, click on that. It's not going to have your picture by default. Doesn't know who you are, right? And then click on profile and settings. This is where you can change. Well, first of all, you have to add your DRA license number. And if your contact information is not correct, you want to make sure that your email address is in there, your cell phone number. And then down here, it's going to say something like, false or something like that when you first log in. So make sure that you delete that false, the word that says false, and you replace that with your DRA license number. And you can add your picture. I mean, it's not a big deal if you add your picture or not, but I like to add it there. Also, you're gonna go under offices and make sure that it says Coldwell Banker Platinum Properties in there. For some reason, sometimes when you sign up with the board, it just says Coldwell Banker Platinum Prop, but spell out properties. And then make sure that the address is correct and everything. And then under phone, I just put my cell phone number. You don't need the office number in there. And I believe that's it. One other thing that you might want to check is under settings at the top. Is that you want to, it's probably already defaulted, but at one point you had to change the time zone to Pacific Standard Time. It doesn't look like that's the case anymore.
Excuse
Yes.
me, how many cases?
You click on the top, up here in this, where my picture is, but you're not gonna have a picture there, it's just a circle. And then click on my, on profile settings. Yeah. Okay, so once that's taken care of, then you're good to go. So let's go back to, you're gonna hit save to save any changes. I'm gonna go back to transactions. This is the home page when you first log in. Okay, so now that you've taken care of any initial settings, you don't have to do that again unless you change offices.
But
If-
that's a zip form.
Yes,
That one is-
yes. So if you come from, if you end up going to a different office, or if you're new to this office and you need to log into settings and change the company name, right? So make sure that if you are coming from another office, that when you log into Zipforms, that you have the correct broker name in there. Okay, so now we're ready to create a transaction. I have a buyer, I'm working with a buyer. So what I'm gonna do is, I wanna write up an offer, so I'm gonna click on new. You guys see this plus circle icon over here that says new? I'm gonna click on that, and if I had a new listing, I would click on new listing, but this is a new purchase or offer, so I'm gonna submit an offer. So I click on new purchase or offer. And for my, you can write whatever you want in this field, but for my reference, with my buyers, I type in their name. Because as you can see down there, 42 Juneberry, that's a property. If I'm going to just have an address there as a reference address, what if they don't accept it? My offer, they don't accept my offer, and then I submit on a different address. But I save this as the first address, right? So that's why I like to save it as Mr. and Mrs. Smith. So that way, anytime I know that I'm gonna go back into that transaction to make any changes or submit an offer, I know that's Mr. and Mrs. Smith's transaction. And something that's really cool that you can do here on Zipforms is if you have the MLS number, the MLS ID, it'll automatically bring some of that information or auto-populate that information for the listing into your transaction. For example, instead of typing in the address, city, and all that for the property that we're going to be submitting an offer on, I'm going to click on MLS Connect over here to the right. And under MLS listing ID, this is case sensitive, so make sure that it's in all caps. So this listing is OC 241044428. And let's include the picture, why not? And click on Find. This is the property I'm going to be submitting an offer on. And all the information is correct. This is the listing I'm going to submit an offer on. So I'm going to click on Use Listing. Well, you know, my clients, they have good taste. And we're going to click on Residential here. And that's it. Then you click on Save. You don't have to do anything else here. So now we are in the transaction. As you can see, it pulled over the MLS number, the address, a bunch of information on the property. This isn't as important right now. We're gonna go to parties. This is the next thing, we're gonna go to parties. And under parties, you want to write in who the parties to the transaction are. Who is the buyer, who is the seller, who is the listing agent and their brokerage, and then your name and your brokerage. So in this case, it brought over the listing agent's information from the MLS. So if I click on the listing agent, I can see this is his name, I don't know if that's him or her, but that's the name for the agent and his DRA license number, and then the brokerage name and the broker's DRA license number. This is important because this is gonna auto-populate on all the forms that require the agent and their brokerage's information. It also has their email address.
You know what, I don't have the page you are on.
I'm sorry,
I don't have the page you are on. I'm on Carter. Also.
you didn't log into it yet?
I logged in, but I can't get into,
Oh, because I created a new transaction.
why are these, excuse me, second. It's on the transaction.
You click on new,
What?
or
Yeah, is that the beginning? Like, and.
click on the car logo on the top left corner.
Yeah.
And then see that big circle on the left, transactions, click on that. And then scroll down. And on the left, the yellow button, click transactions. Yeah, the yellow one. And then once that opens, you're gonna click on new.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's gonna pull all the information for the listing agent and their brokerage. So let me close this window. And also, it automatically populates my information because I'm the one logging in, and it has my information because I made sure it did under settings, right, profile and settings. So, but it, for some reason, doesn't show my license number. That's not my license number. I'll do that later on. It doesn't have the office license number either, so I want to make sure that all this information is in there. I don't have mine memorized, but that's not it. Let's just do that. So make sure everything's saved in here, and we're gonna click save. And now I want to add my buyer's information. Why? Because the buyer's name is gonna populate onto every contract, but it's also gonna show up, allow you to send this for e-signatures. So we need the buyer's first and last name. If there's a middle name, add the middle name, and their email address. Everything else is optional. You can save everything else, but the most important things here are the name and email address. So this is gonna be John. We're gonna spell it the other way, Jon. I spell it too much with John, so let's just do John Smith. And he's gonna be johnsmith@gmail.com. So I have his name, his email address, there's no middle name for him. And click save, and that's pretty much all I need. And when I submit an offer, and we talked about this before, I would have already pulled up a property profile on this listing, and it tells me who the owner is, who the seller is. So now that I have the seller's name, I also want the seller's name to show up on the contract. I'm gonna click on seller one.
Is that that's really Jancy?
I'm sorry,
Is that's really Jancy?
three, what do you mean three of these?
Listing agent. Buyer and seller.
If you're gonna submit an offer, you need everybody's name that's involved in the transaction on the contract. So the seller is gonna be, let's say, Richard Moore. And we don't need Richard Moore's email address because we're not working with the seller directly. We just want his name to show up on the contract as the seller. So leave email alone, click save. Does that make sense? If I'm working on the listing side and I'm entering the seller's name, then I will need the seller's email address because I'm gonna send it to him for digital signatures, but I'm not working with the seller in this transaction, only the buyer. So here we have the listing agent, the buyer's agent, the buyer and the seller. Right? Everybody's that's involved in the transaction. All right, so now that we have that, let's click on documents right here in this gray bar up on top. And this is a documents area. This is where all your contracts are gonna show up that you select, right? So to access the forms, you're gonna click on this top right-hand corner where it says all forms. And the first thing we need is the purchase agreement. And it's the first one on there. So we're gonna click on California Residential Purchase Agreement. And then click away from that. And click on the actual contract itself. So I'm clicking on it, it's gonna open up. Let me know if I'm going too fast. And this is gonna show you the purchase contract, which is comprised of a bunch of different contracts, a bunch of different forms, not just the purchase contract. So As you can see, it has buyer's name and it has my name as representing the buyer. So I'm gonna check buyer. We're not gonna go through and talk about how to fill this out. I just wanna show you how everything's populated and why we did what we did as far as entering the parties. And it has the Color Make Plot Properties and the DRE number for the office, my name and my DRE number. If we scroll down, you'll see it's gonna have the buyer's name and the seller's name. So here it says, sorry, it doesn't let me highlight it, but it says buyer slash tenant. In this case, it's the buyer, and we typed it, we have his name in there. And underneath it says seller housing provided. In this case, it's the seller. So the seller's name is gonna show up in here.
What about the date? You put that in.
So the date, thank you for asking that. So the date's not gonna show up until they sign. So when you send this out for signatures, that they're gonna, if it's digital signatures, it'll automatically add the date signed. If they're signing in person, they have to sign and write the date.
Oh,
Yeah, so you don't do anything with the date now until it's being signed. We're scrolling down, again, there's a seller, the buyer, the listing agent, and then the buyer's agent, and then the listing agent. So as you can see, everything's pre-populated, auto-populated. Keep scrolling down. And then Richard went over the purchase contract on Tuesday, so we're not gonna talk about how to fill this out, but just a quick note is the seller, this guy's representing the seller and I'm representing the buyer. So we check those boxes. And you're gonna go through the purchase contract. Let's see. And then again, at the end, we're gonna have the buyer sign, the seller sign, and then the agents. Everything. Pretty easy, right? So if you don't populate the parties section first, you're gonna have to fill it out on the contract. The cool thing is that once you type out the name in the contract, if you forget to do it in the party section, it's gonna automatically remember. So any form that you add to it, it's gonna auto-populate that information. But if you don't add the email address in the party section, and you go to email these forms to the buyer, it's not gonna have the email address, so you have to type it in. And the next time you send another form, you're gonna have to type in the email address again, over and over again. But if you add it in the party section at the beginning, you don't have to add the email address every time you send it. So, any questions on this part of it so far? Okay, so now let's save this. We made all the changes, we wrote up the offer, the terms, everything that we, the buyer wants to submit. So now that we saved it up at the top right corner, now we want to send it out for digital signatures for signing. So this blue button up here that says prepare signing, we're gonna click on that. And then this automatically names the signing, what they call an envelope. So I just click on the blue button create, but you can name this whatever you want. So you can say RPA, or whatever you want to name it for your reference, however, whatever makes you comfortable. So I'm just gonna name it RPA. I usually just leave it the way it is. I don't change it, but I just change it to show you that you can change that. And the return folder, you can tell it where to you can create folders and tell it where you want the signed document to show up afterwards, but I don't do anything. I just leave it as is. So I click create, right? And now it's going to take us to a similar screen, except here it's going to show us the forms, and it's also going to show us, we're going to add, first thing we got to do is add the parties from the transaction. So what parties are involved in this signing? We're going to add from the transaction because we've already added the parties in the transaction. And the only people that are signing right now is my buyer and myself. That's it. Once my buyer and I sign this, then I can send this offer to the listing agent, and then he takes care of the seller's signature and his signature. So then I click on select at the bottom here. And you'll notice that it automatically put my buyer's signature box where my buyer is going to sign in each document, and along with my signature box. Some people think Why is it signed already? It's not signed, it's just showing you a preview of where they're gonna sign, right? So it automatically added, but it's important that before you send this out, you look at every form to make sure that there's a signature box or initial box in every space that it needs one. Because sometimes the system will be a little wonky and it'll miss a signature block. So it's important that you look through this and don't rely on this just doing it on its own. So we're gonna scroll it, yes,
If it's missing, can you put it in?
yes, and I'll show you how to do that. So we're gonna scroll down and see buyer signature, okay? Buyer signature, and you can even move it, like this is like moved up too high. I can click on it and drag it and move it down. Let's see, keep going. But let's say we're going through the document and it's, let me delete this here. Let's say the system forgot to add a signature here, right? And this is where my buyer's supposed to sign. What I'm gonna do is on the right-hand side where it says tools, you guys see that?
Mhm.
I'm gonna click on tools and I'm gonna switch the name to my buyer. So now it allows me to drop a signature box for my buyer wherever I want to. So I click and drag it down. And when I do that, it automatically brings the date with it. You can leave the date there if you want to, or you can move it over, click and drag it and move it over to the right. Any questions on that? No? You have to click on prepare sign from the top right hand corner. Because you have to enter a name and an address and all that. So you have to fill out some of it before. Yeah, so before you can go onto the signing portion of it, you have to fill out the contract. Otherwise, it's not gonna let you move on. You have to have an address, buyer, seller, all that stuff. So it's not gonna let you go to signing until that's filled out. Let's go through this some more. Maybe the initials are missing here, so let's click on initials and delete that one. So as you can see, you can click on initials here and drag it over and drop it there.
Would you select the form and come to?
Yes, that's a purchase agreement packet, yes. Yeah, there's a reason for each one of those being in that packet, so everything's required when you submit the offer. And then sometimes you might have forgotten, maybe you forgot to check a box here. So something you can do is click on, I think it's tools. And click on text box. And when you click on text box, you can click like, let's say right here. And then click inside the box and type in X. So now, excuse me, now this is check marked because you forgot to do it in the previous window. Because in this window, you can't change anything or add anything. The only thing you can add is signatures. But if instead of going back and adding the X or check or whatever, you could just do that here with the text box feature. That's just in case, right? Let's say that, let me see if we have a PDF saved here somewhere. Somebody else's forms here. Listing agreement sample, okay. Let's do this. We're gonna click on documents. Excuse me. If there's more documents I want to add to sign, for my buyer to sign, or the seller, whoever you're representing, sometimes you're gonna get a PDF from the other agent for your buyer to sign or for your seller to sign or whatever it is. This is where you would add that document. You can add it here or you can add it at the beginning. But since we're just gonna upload it from the computer, I'm gonna click on upload, sorry, add document and then upload. And then add document from my computer. See if this works. Hopefully it's not locked. So now it added, excuse me, it added another form to this for signatures. But it's a PDF. It's not something that I can fill out or anything. It's just something I can add signatures to. So if you see, this is what I just uploaded. It's a sample. And it has no names on them. So maybe the other agent sent it to me with only their client's name on it. So what I need to do is when I click on tools, I need to add my buyer's name. So I'm gonna click on full name and drag it over like underneath. And then I'm gonna drag the signature above. So there's no mistaking who's signing, right? It has the printed out name. We scroll down to the next page. My buyer's name is not here, so I'm gonna say, click on full name, drag it over, maybe to the right. Click on sign here and drag it over. And then maybe I want to move the date over. So this is how you would add a foreign document into Zipforms, a PDF. So it's gotta be in PDF form. And this is gonna happen during a transaction. Some forms you're gonna fill out in Zipforms and send them out for signatures. Sometimes you're gonna get PDFs that you have to upload into the transaction to get signed. So any questions on that? Everybody knows, like everybody's an expert now? Let's see.
You're explaining it so well, Thomas. There's
Oh,
no
thank you.
Questions.
So the question is, does CB have company forms required affiliates? Yes, we have two forms. We have the affiliated business arrangement disclosure and we have the mold disclosure. And those are PDFs. And you can access those through the cbppintranet.com. Or if you email me and request them, I can email them to your PDF format.
And then you add it.
So should we send with documents? Yes. You can add them to the transaction and then drop in the signature boxes and the names and have them signed.
I'm sorry, what were the two forms?
It's the affiliated business arrangement disclosure. And then the mold disclosure. And they're on the checklist. That's one of the classes we're gonna talk about. The transaction checklist and I think the next 1 or 2 classes. I think it's the next class. So let's go back. Don't save. So we're gonna start from scratch again. We're gonna create a whole new transaction. We're gonna go to transactions. But what do? We go to new purchase or offer. And then my buyer's name. I'm sorry,
Are you repeating?
I'm repeating.
Okay.
Just a little
Yeah.
quicker, just to show you guys with all the talking in between. So my buyer is gonna be Mr. and actually, you know where I messed up? I forgot to add Mrs. Smith to my transaction. She's got to sign too.
We assumed he was single.
Well, I said Mr. and Mrs. Smith though,
Oh, I
and
understand.
I totally forgot. So in this one, I'm just gonna say one person, right? I'm gonna say, I don't know. I can't think of a name. George, I don't know. George, Walker. I don't know why, George Walker. And let's say we don't have the MLS ID, right? Like, we should have it, but let's say we don't have it. So we're not gonna do the MLS Connect on this one. This is residential. And then we're gonna click on save. And that's it, that creates the transaction for us to work with. And first thing I wanna do here is the parties. Buyer 1 is gonna be George Walker. And then email is gw@gmail.com. I don't know, whatever, right? And save. So now I have my buyer and I click on myself, and remember, it might not automatically add your DRE license number, so add that and add the company's DRE license number. Save. Now, once you have this squared away, you should be good for now to write it up. But then if you don't have the property profile, look up the property profile or ask Mary for it, and then you'll have the seller's name and pull up the MLS listing, you'll have the agent's name. And once you have that, now you can add seller one. Is gonna be, let's do Richard, he has a lot of houses to sell. And again, we don't need Richard's email just because we're not representing him or dealing directly with him. We just need his name on the contract. And we're gonna type in the listing agent's contact information, name and contact information, right? So in this case, the listing agent is. Just so one line. And their MLS ID or MLS number, sorry, DRE license number is 0189. Okay. We don't need their email address because we're not gonna be emailing them from Zipforms. And then their firm name is Williams. Irvine, that's what it says in the MLS, so that's what I'm going to type in there, and then their DRE license number is 01926151. And that's it, that's all I need. So we have all the parties associated with this transaction, right? We're gonna click on documents. And then click on add forms, all forms on the right. And the first form is the one we need to submit an offer. We click on that. And then click on purchase agreement. Scroll down, we're representing the buyer. And then the address, since we didn't type in the address at the beginning, I'm gonna show you that once we add the address to the property here, it's gonna show up on everything. So in this case, it's 60. So, two. Okay. So now it's on there. So now that we added that address on there, you're gonna see that it's populating everywhere. See, there's the address. And again, you're gonna write up your offer, save it. Now it's ready for signing. You're gonna click on prepare for signing. But before you do this, excuse me, please email me or Richard a copy of it so we can review it before you submit it. We wanna make sure that you're protected, your buyer's protected and everything. So if you're newer, so then you're gonna click on prepare signing. And I'm just gonna leave it like that, click on create. And then this important thing is add participants, who's signing. So we have to add participants from the transaction. My buyer George is signing and I'm signing, and that's it. Select. And if you scroll down, you'll see that our signature boxes are there. Right? So one thing I didn't mention in the last example was both participants are gonna receive the email to sign at the same time. But there might be times where maybe the wife wants to sign first, or the husband needs to sign first because they want to review the terms or whatever it is before the other signs it. In that case, you're gonna turn this little ticker on and set the signing order. So in this case, I want my client to sign first, and after he signs, then I get an email to sign, and then it's complete. But if there were multiple buyers, it would go to the first buyer after they complete, the second buyer after they completed, third buyer. And you as the agent, you're gonna get notified every time somebody completes their signature, right? Or their signing. So when George completes it, I'm gonna get an email saying, hey, George completed his signing. But then I'm also gonna get another email saying, okay, now it's your turn to sign. And then once I complete it, I'm gonna get another email that says, hey, your signing is complete now. All right, cool. And then it'll give you the option to download the PDF of the signed document, or you can log back into Zipforms and download it from Zipforms.
Do you sign last? Does it matter when you sign?
No, I like to sign last because yeah, just to make sure everybody signed. There's times where you can send it for everybody to sign at once. It's just certain disclosures, or just like one form or something where everybody needs to sign. But there's gonna be cases where there's gonna be one person that's I guess dedicated from all signers to review everything and agree to it before anyone else signs. Yeah, yes.
can we send? This is online to another person to sign.
Your buyer.
Or they have to sit on computers.
No, they're gonna get an email. Like George is gonna get an email saying, hey, there's some documents for you to sign, click here. They-
It's gonna generate.
So a good thing to do is practice. Do one of these, send it to yourself to sign. And then, so you can see what the process is like for the buyer. So that's something that I would recommend that you all do.
You can do that on their website, they offer.
Yeah, no, you're paying for it with your dues. So log in, create a fake transaction. Don't send emails to anybody else. Make sure you just add your email address, send it for yourself to sign, and then just experience it. So that way, I mean, you should know, because when you're sending something like this to your buyers to sign or your sellers to sign, you need to know what steps they need to take. So you can't tell them, oh, make sure you click here if you haven't done it yourself. So if you go through it, then you'll know what to expect, right? What they're gonna expect. So you're gonna get the email, it's gonna say, there's some documents for you to sign. You click on the button, and then it'll ask you to select a signature, a font. It could be like handwriting, like script, or it could just be regular italicized font, right? So you select that, and then it'll show you the forms, and it'll give you the option to read through it and then click and sign. Clicking is signing when you click on your name. And it'll take you, you can either scroll down until you see your next signature, or you can click on the next button, which will take you straight down to your next signature. So it's pretty interesting that it does that, because you want people to read what they're signing, but it also makes it easy for them to click next, where do I sign next? All right, click next, where do I sign next? Click and sign, right? So does that make sense?
Mhm.
So go through it. I would do something like this where it's the whole purchase contract, where it has a few places for you as the agent to sign. Just do a test one, fill it out, use the listing from the MLS, make sure you enter the information, and if you want, write up an offer and make up like a fake buyer, and then even bring it to me or Richard just to look at, to see, actually, we don't do homework, but this is gonna be homework. So within the next couple of weeks, if you guys can write up an offer, right? Look up any property in the MLS, offer asking price. You guys went through the RPA class on Tuesday with Rich, so look at your notes and fill it out based on what you think the best terms are to get your offer accepted. And then either email it to me or print it out and hand it to me, and I'll review it.
That's.
Yeah, let's do that. We've never done that before. So you guys at home too, write up a purchase agreement, select any listing in the MLS. Make sure that you guys are gonna have to know who the seller is. So use the tax records. Don't bother Mary for a property profile. So just for this practice. So go into the MLS, when you see the listing, click on the APN number, and it should show you who the owner is. So, yeah, the APN. Or there's a tab next to it that says tax record. So you can click on that, and it'll show you who the owner is. But also, the MLS printout will show you who the listing agent is and who the brokerage is. So you'll be able to populate everything as you should. So let's do that. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Okay. And if you guys need like further assistance with accessing it, or, whatever, you can reach out.
Do I have to send to, or when if the bottom being sent?
Yeah, but you're not gonna use a real buyer. You're not gonna send it to the buyer. You're just gonna send it to yourself as the agent. Or you can set yourself as the buyer.
You send the link or it's still on?
No, from here it goes automatically. From here, once you hit, like, if I click on next. Yeah, let's do that. When I click on next, it's gonna say this expires on June 29th. So if it sits in their email until June 29th, they can always click it and sign it. They can click and sign it tomorrow up until June 29th. Or you can say this is only good for, till tomorrow or whatever, right? And then you click on send, and then it sends them an email. So they're gonna get their email, right? And it's gonna say in their email, click here to sign. So yeah, let's do that. Anybody have any issues with or problems with generating a purchase contract? or writing up an offer.
The
Well,
only-
we'll see, won't we?
No, I mean, this is good practice.
That's
It's
great.
better to practice and do this now and then get it out of the way. And then if you guys do something wrong, or maybe we can discuss options that'll make your offer look a little more attractive, we can discuss that one-on-one. Hey, you know, you could change this a little bit, it'll make your offer look a little more appealing. But I don't know, because your buyer says, I want 30-day escrow, I want 45-day escrow, I want to reduce the contingency period from 17 days to 10 days. I want my offer to look better. So it's gonna be up to your buyer, right, ultimately? But you can advise your buyer on what will make their offer look attractive.
You can change that to 10, from 17 to 10?
Yeah, Yeah, it gives you that option. So like, if you go back, the default period is 17 days.
Oh, it doesn't have to.
But there's a line next to it that says, or you enter the number of days. So we're looking at the purchase contract. So here the default is 17 days for mostly everything. You can change it to 10 days. On everything. Right? And then you do.
Especially if it's cash.
Yeah, it's cash, yeah, because you don't need to wait for the appraisal and wait for the loan approval, any of that. You just need time for your inspections and for the prelim and for HOA docs and all that stuff, right? So. Yeah, any questions?
Where I can get this, I know the writing, the purchase package, and what the next step, conversation.
Well, today we're just talking about the purchase contract and, well, Zipforms, but
Where I can get those, what the chances.
yeah, that's gonna be next week's class.
You don't have it.
We do have it, yeah.
Last training, we did
No, the transaction checklist is what we're gonna do next.
checklist.
Yeah, next week.
Next week.
Yeah. So, yeah, there's a lot of forms that are required to close a transaction. And next week, we're gonna cover. So when you're a new agent, it's a little overwhelming, right? You have all these things you have to do. And like, where do I get this stuff from? Do I just find it in Zipforms? Well, next week, we're gonna talk about what you're responsible for generating and what the listing agent is responsible for generating. So there's some forms you're gonna get from the listing agent that you just need to have your buyer sign. There's some things that you have to generate, like the purchase contract, the pre-approval letter, proof of funds, things like that. And there's things you're gonna get from escrow. So we're gonna talk about who to get these things from. So as you're going down your checklist and you're missing something, you know who to contact for it. Oh, I get this from escrow, let me email escrow, hey, can you send me this? Or the listing agent, hey, you never sent over this form, can you please have your seller sign and send it to me? Right, or if it's something that you need to generate, then you'll know, hey, I gotta get my buyer to sign this.
Is there an actual list that you're gonna give us next
Yes,
week?
yes,
With everything? Okay.
yes. Yeah, I'll give you guys a list. Okay, I guess that's it. Is there anything else you guys want me to go over again? That maybe I went through fast, a little fast or something? Anything? No?
Not on this, there is another form that I wanted to ask you about, I don't know if I'm just jumping ahead, you can do it anyway.
Which form?
Well, with all the changes coming up, we're gonna need to have a buyer representation form.
Yes,
So what I would like to do is be able to just print a bunch of those off so that if, let's say we were at an open house and someone says, no, I really need a buyer, and you wanted to sign them up there and then, I'd like to have some blank ones of those. So I was wondering where we find those, and is that permissible? to
this
have?
is, yeah, this is here, but there's gonna be a new form for open houses. Excuse me. So the form for open houses is gonna be separate from the regular buyer broker agreement.
I realize that, but if you did happen to meet somebody, let's say I
Yeah.
touch somebody else, it's like, yeah, I really would like you to be our agent, I'd like to sign them up there and then.
You must be
So then-
really good that they just met you and they want you to be their agent. You're just right.
I'm gonna get it every time.
So you go to all forms, and then it should be here.
I'll write it down.
Buyer. I just type in buyer and then we find it here.
Oh, okay, simple as that.
Buyer representation and broker compensation.
That's a new form.
It's not new, it's been around, I think, for like maybe a year.
Oh, okay.
Let's see, it'll tell us when it was created here. I just started a new workspace. Oh, so thank you for asking to bring that up, because let me go back. When you pull up, let's say you already did your purchase contract. And you already have that signed. The next time you want to add a form or create a form to fill out, it's gonna ask you, do you want to open up the existing workspace or do you want to open up a new workspace? If you open up the existing workspace, it's gonna pull up the other forms you were working on already, that you already sent out for signatures,
With their
and
names.
it's gonna add this form to that. But we don't want that, so like when I click on buyer representation, it's gonna ask me, do you want a previous workstation? Workspace. If I click that, it's gonna pull up the purchase contract and it's gonna add this to it. Right, but I don't wanna work on both of them, I've already had them sign that one. So I'm gonna click on create, start a new workspace, sorry. And then now it's only gonna show me this, just this one. Yeah. And if I wanted to add another form to this, I can click on add a form. And then go to form libraries. And I'm gonna look through the form libraries and I wanna add, I don't know, let's do the fire inspection waiver. I wanna add this to it. So now as you can see up here, it added the form to it. So now, if I scroll down. Now we also have the buyer inspect, sorry, that's not it.
This one is essential.
Buyer inspection waiver.
Yes, like we represent utility. This is.
No, this is just an example. I just pulled up any form right now, just to show you guys how you can add it. And if I don't want this form to be signed now, I'm just gonna click the X here. And it's gonna move it down here where the purchase contract is. I'm not working on these down here. I'm only working on the ones on top, right?
So that package still not covered for the whole form. You have the checklist like that.
Yeah, next week we're gonna talk about that, yeah.
It is buyer inspection waiver essential. That we need to tell them.
So,
Because they paid it.
so with the buyer inspection, and we're gonna talk about this next week, but since you're asking now. Your buyer has the right to inspect the property. But if they don't want to, they say, let's submit an offer, I don't care, I don't wanna do an inspection. If you're representing the buyer, you want them to sign that buyer inspection waiver, because it says, I recommended that you do one. And you're saying you don't want to, so sign this saying that I'm not liable if something happens because I recommended that you do an inspection. So that's when you would use that. Otherwise, if they don't sign that waiver, that means they're probably gonna pay for an inspection report. But that inspection waiver, let me show you. That also has waiving termite. Right here. So, yeah, so for this form, the buyer would have to initial 3A. If they just want to waive the regular inspection, and then they have to sign down here at the bottom. But if they want to waive their inspection and termite, they click the initial 3A and the initial 3B, and also sign at the bottom.
But no need for those if we click on no appraisal, no inspection.
No. No, because on the purchase contract, you're gonna waive the appraisal rate.
Yeah.
So they're already waiving it.
So we did not check on no appraisal. There is.
Right, we didn't go through the purchase contract.
So no need for those.
No, so if you're waiving the appraisal, you're gonna do that on the purchase contract. It's not on here. This is for inspections.
For inspection.
Yes.
But if there is no inspection required. So no
Well,
need for those.
there's never an inspection, it's inspection required. If the buyer wants to do inspection, they
Yeah, I
can.
mean, yeah.
But if they don't want to, you have them sign this, initial sign this.
They
Let's say that
have
they're
to.
waiving the inspection.
They have to,
Yes, we require it.
yeah, required.
If you're working with the buyer and they say, I don't want to do an inspection, we require that you either,
In my.
so our
case,
checklist says ask for inspection or the waiver. So you have to fulfill that. You're gonna do either or. You're gonna either upload the copy of the inspection or the buyer inspection waiver initially to sign by the buyer.
That's to protect us, right?
Yes,
So they can't come back later and say, oh, there's something wrong with this happened and you didn't.
right.
So in my case, you know it.
You wanted,
So I have to let them sign this one.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, I think I've held you guys enough, and you guys get the idea. Just log in, practice with it,
Yeah.
and then submit an offer, or write up an offer, you don't have to submit it. And then email, either print it out or email it to me. Don't email it to me through here, like this. What you wanna do is you want to, let's see. You're gonna download it here. And then as a single file. Let's check the form that we're gonna download, and then we're gonna click download, single file. And it's gonna download it as a PDF, and then you can email me that PDF. See? Here's the PDF. Right? Cool, there it is. All right, so if you guys have any further questions, you can email me or come into the office to see me.
So I didn't come in for this, so we go to the Zipforms, the blast, the website, right?
No, we're going to car.org. Sierra. So. Let's see. Right here, car.org. And then, have you registered for this yet? So if you haven't registered, you're gonna click on sign in on the top right corner here. And then you're gonna click on register, register's on the right. And then you're gonna register, and then you're gonna go back to the homepage here, click on access transactions. Scroll down, access now. And then it's gonna ask you to log in. Once you log in, then it's gonna open up to Zipforms.
Starting next week. I had to clear my
Okay.
calendar,
All right.
all the people, move
All right.
out of Thursday.
Thanks, everybody. I'll see you guys next week.
If I will,